Hey, everyone. Okay, I'll ping Scar back, but he might be. Oh, here he is. Hello. I was just about to say, I was literally just about to say, Scar, but you might be busy with QA tests. But awesome. So, who would like to demo something?
I nominate Henry to show off progress we've made thus far with tuning.
Yes, of course. 1 moment. Give me. I just want to add one note before I forget about it. Okay. So let me share my screen. So we have this fine-tuning. My cat is annoying. We have this fine-tuning of API and GKE issue. And what we did so far is trying to decrease the amount of min replicas because we already hit the floor most of the time. And also increasing the HBA target, right? So in the first try, we raised it a little bit too high, which caused a slight aptx drop because we used too much CPU. But now we tried it with a less ambitious number, which is 2,800 requests, target CPU value. And in Canary, this looks fine. So we see a slight increase of Ruby thread contention, but not as much as before. And it looks good. And so we prepared the same change for cluster use East 1B now in NMR, which could be merged after the PCL log went away. And I prepared in the issue a list of next steps to follow. So it should be clear when to do which and where to add in the next NMRs. And how much detail should I go? Because we are talking now about the things we already discussed before in the same group.
Yeah, we can just link that in. Graham will have to watch 2 videos, I think, but that's totally fine. Are there any like live dashboards or any interesting things that you can see?
So the interesting thing is, first of all, looking at the aptx, of course. Since we did the change, you see the spike here. This is when we deployed the change to Canary, and each time we deploy to Canary, we have an aptx drop spike. And you see the aptx didn't change after that. So it's nearly the same. With the higher value, we saw a decrease in aptx. So this time we seem to be good. The same if you look at the Ruby thread contention, we start the change around here. And you see that thread contention, the red line, got a little bit higher, but not as much as in our first try. So we also are fine. Also, I checked back the last 30 days. And when we were running on VMs, our Ruby thread contention was even higher than we had it most of the time in Kubernetes. So we have some headroom there still. But I think we are okay here. So I think we are really fine to try this on one production cluster now. We can also see how the node count got a little bit down in Canary. This is the red line. We started the change here. But we didn't get much lower than 1 day before, which is around here. So we can still see if this has a big effect on Canary, but this is special because we just have a few nodes and we are not at low traffic times right now. I expect this to go down this night. And the same for pod count. There's not much of a difference to see, but a little bit at least when we, let's zoom in. Did the change, I think, here? No, let me check. Yeah, around here. We dropped down a little bit on pods, but there's not a huge difference to see. I think in Canary, there's not too much to see. Let's see how much this will affect production.
Do you have any sort of way to predict if we're going to run into Ruby thread contention if we decide to lower the amount of CPU that we are requesting in our deployments?
No, I was wondering about this. Lowering requests doesn't mean that we use more CPU per pod, right? It's just that we can't scale higher if we spike, right? And so it depends very much on the patterns of the spikes that we see on our single containers, right? I think that's the thing which is hard to predict. Looking at the CPU, I don't see it spiking too much. Like if you look at the usage of CPU on a single pod, you don't see a lot of spikes, but we also don't have a very high resolution on that. So it doesn't look like we have a very spiky behavior on a single pod for CPU. So I expect not to see big issues, but if we have very special traffic patterns, I'm not that sure about it. So we should watch this over a longer time, I think.
Maybe we should, if Ruby contention is, I'm just thinking long term because we had mentioned this in our other meeting, but I wonder if Ruby thread contention is the driver for what, or maybe the first driver where we start to see issues. Maybe we could leverage that as a method of scaling as our custom metric.
Yeah, we at
If we
least
could make sure that we don't ever exceed 80% Ruby thread contention.
Yeah, if we exceed it constantly or spike over 90%, then we should be careful. I think then we start to get into trouble. It looks like it, at least. And also looking at the aptx, of course. I think as long as the aptx isn't dropping, I think we are still fine. At least this was the experience last time.
So you showed a chart a second ago where the aptx dropped a little bit when we deployed this change. Why would that have occurred?
The aptx when we deployed here, this is node scaling. I'm pretty sure this is because of node scaling. Each time we deploy to a Canary, we scale from 5 to, I don't know, 8 nodes. This is doubling the amount of nodes nearly, and I think this is causing a lot of CPU and I don't know, maybe warm-up time. So this really seems to be an issue.
Do you think we may be prematurely making our nodes ready? Or pods ready, rather?
That's a good question. We really should research what exactly is happening when we start up a node and start up a pod. I'm not fully sure of the lifetime at the beginning of starting a pod, how this looks like in performance.
Let's keep that in mind in the future when we finish up this particular issue.
Yeah. Talking about workers, there was an interesting remark from Matthias in the issue, where he mentioned instead of increasing the amount of workers, we could increase the amount of Puma threads, because that would get around the lock contention and still give us memory reusage. So if we want to get more workers or threads into a pod, then if we can increase the amount of threads, it would be better than increasing the amount of workers.
Is there a good basic guide or some documentation that I could read related to workers and Puma threads? Because I don't know much about this. So except for what metrics we may already have and learning that, hey, this is bad when this is high, I don't know how I would go about thinking about making certain changes such as that. Like I need to learn something, but I don't know where to turn to. I'm wondering if
I'm
we
not
have
the expert here.
documentation or...
I'm also not sure. I
Yeah.
just know that we have these minimum 1 and maximum 4 threads for Puma right now in GKE, but I don't know how Ruby or Rails is deciding that we now use, I don't know, 2 or 3 threads and 2 or 5 or 4 workers, how this is mixed, right? So I wanted to just look into that, but I don't know it yet.
What are the risk areas? Like if that's a bad idea, what would be the impact?
I mean, it's just how you distribute load on different CPUs, right? And that's what you're juggling with when you change things there. So it's kind of a tuning thing. I don't see. I mean, I
I'm
don't see.
wondering if scalability, for example, might be good people to know this stuff.
Yeah, somebody who is really good on Rails and Ruby in general, some expert there.
Because I'm assuming that the downside, like these settings have scalability impact, right? Like at some point, I'm guessing.
I guess we could just leverage Matthias Kepler chiming in into this issue, because I think he's very much into the details of this anyway, and he's very interested in that anyway, because he was asking questions about what we are doing with tuning right now in GKE, because he wanted to understand better. And maybe he can even just give us advice on how this is internally happening, juggling with threads and workers there. So we can just make use of his interest, maybe. I think it could be very valuable. Yeah, I will ask him in the issue.
Okay, super. Great. Okay, so looks like we're making good progress today. Is there any additional stuff we want to go through on tuning? No? Cool. So the other thing I was going to ask about is runbooks. How are they? The issue is we've got it written at the moment has quite a length of runbooks in it. Is that like achievable? Is that how we want to tackle this stuff?
I picked up this issue. So far, the work that I'm doing is mostly just updating existing documentation because a lot of it's out of date. I am going to ask for feedback when I have a merge request ready, but I'm still touching various bits and pieces of documentation. So I'll ask for feedback when we get to that point. I do want to see if I can get some feedback as to what runbooks we should add that might be specific to the API. I'm trying to shy away from creating, hey, this is Kubernetes and this is API, because there's going to be a lot of troubleshooting steps that you could take with Kubernetes in general, not specific to API. So I'm trying to avoid that part. But if we are missing something that's specific to Kubernetes that we don't have anywhere, that we definitely need to address that in some way, shape, or form, I'll certainly add that as necessary.
Oh, okay, sounds good. Please keep the description updated with whatever you decide that issue should focus on.
Yeah.
Awesome. And are there other pieces to the API service? We've got runbooks, we've got the tuning to wrap up, we've got the retro issue, but otherwise, are we feeling that API is complete?
I have a question about production changes, because when we do production changes via Chef now, we often need to create change request issues depending on the impact, the possible impact that it could have, right? And I'm asking myself, if we do this via Kubernetes now, how we value the possible impact of changing configurations, because in most cases we do more advanced than we do often with Chef, where we just stop Chef client maybe somewhere, try it just on one node and things like that. And I'm not sure about how we should deal with configuration changes much more often. So it's more about thinking about a policy on how to work with that. It's a question. I don't have an answer to this.
Jav, do you have any tips?
I'm sorry, I was doing something else. What was the question, Henry?
It's about change request issues. Because when we do changes in production with Chef, we often, if we think there's high impact for this change, then we create it. And with doing conversion changes via communities, which is happening more and more often, I guess, because we move more and more stuff over there and have less and less things in Chef. I wonder, how do we value the possible impact of doing changes in GKE? Because the reasoning of changing some piece here and what is happening then is a little bit different than doing things via Chef.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm wondering how we do this. I don't want to introduce bureaucracy for sure, but wondering about this a little bit.
I think like it's really the judgment of the, I mean, we need to trust the judgment of the SRE. We typically use change requests for changes that involve a lot of distinct steps and manual actions, and where there's like continual monitoring required, and possibly like a handover necessary. So for these types of changes, I would say, yeah, maybe it would be better. We're kind of using this issue as a change request because it has like links to monitoring, but perhaps it would be better if we did a change issue. I dislike the bureaucracy as well. The good news is that as soon as Igor finishes the review, I have an update to Woodhouse that allows you to fill out a change issue similar to how we fill out an incident. And it allows you to fill in all the fields and everything in an interactive form. So it does make it a little bit easier, not that much easier, but at least you don't have to manually edit the description and all that jazz, which you have to do now. I don't know if that's any consolation, but I would say, yeah, maybe we should be, maybe we should like create a change issue for each one of these changes that we're making.
I would vote
Really?
differently. So like we're making very small, concise changes. We're testing them on individual clusters. We don't know what's going to happen, but we are focusing our efforts on specific things. We're focusing these on specific clusters, and we have all, thanks to Andrew's wonderful work, we have amazing metrics to peel through and determine whether or not we're doing bad things relatively quickly.
Well, I would say this fine-tune issue is sort of becoming a change issue, right? It has links to monitoring. It has a timeline. Why don't we just promote it to a change issue, and just so we can at least reference, like we could do that. I don't feel super strongly. Like if you guys think that it's better just to do what we've been doing, that's fine with me. I think
I'm simply just trying to cut down on the amount of administrative work required, because a change request is not cheap as far as time taken just to implement that in itself, aside from the investigation and the work required in general.
Yeah, we could just have one change issue for the changes that we're making, but that's basically the same issue that we have now. So the main thing, the one place where I think we could have done better was on the change to increase the target average utilization, which caused an aptx drop. I don't think there was a very good handover. Like the on-call probably wasn't aware of that change, because I don't know, maybe a change issue would have helped, maybe not, you know. It's hard to say, but yeah.
There's two things there. The first is that we have a more relaxed aptx for the API than we do for the web. And so maybe the headline figure, which was aptx, didn't dip enough.
Yeah.
And then the second one was, I don't know if that Ruby thread saturation is something that actually pages, and maybe it should. But also I'm reluctant to, it does, it just goes to alerts general, doesn't it? Because it was firing for the whole time.
I know.
But I was like, Yeah.
But you're the only one in that
just-
channel, so
it just
No,
said,
there's 120 people in there.
But this
sure,
also
you're
was
the only
the
one.
case on our VM fleet. There we also had a very high thread contention all the time when I look 30 days
Yes.
back. So it wasn't the primary cause of problems.
Yeah,
Right? It's
I
an
think
indicator of something going high, but it's not immediately leading to true problems in the aptx, I think.
I would argue API VMs was saturated. Like we were way under provisioned, and we realized after we did the Kubernetes migration how bad things were. Right? Like I think maybe thread contention is a really good signal, and maybe we should have been paying more attention to it, because aptx is really low for our thresholds.
Yeah. And like I said to you, I think on Monday, Jav, like there's another one of those that's firing constantly for Sidekick Urgent Other Fleet. And I'm kind of ignoring it at the moment, but maybe, and there's an issue, we know what the problem is, but it's scheduled for like 2 releases into the future. And maybe that's something we should go and take a look at, and it might be something we need to kind of action sooner than that.
Yeah. I think it wouldn't hurt to at the SRE on call for these changes, I think, just so that they're aware, especially if we do another change on the end of the week. Because I think it was kind of bad last weekend. The on call was getting these Canary aptx alerts, and I don't think it was hard to narrow it down to the change that was made on Thursday. I don't know if it would have helped, but maybe it would have if we communicated that better to the on-call.
Slightly made worse by the fact that there was a typo in the first merge request, so it didn't even
I
actually
know.
go to Canary. They had to backtrack a little further, but that was a little unfortunate. Yes,
yeah,
I agree.
Okay, well, I don't know. I think as long as maybe we should just keep on doing what we're doing, but try to let the on-call know as much as possible, like what changes are going through.
This is a good solution, I think. Yeah.
What's the best way to do that?
I think SRE on call Slack alias is probably the best thing we can do.
Okay, sounds good. Cool.
But Amy, going all the way back to your original question of, do you think we're done? I've got one cleanup issue left in this epic. When we first created a lot of our infrastructure and configurations, we kind of over-optimized because there was an assumption that we would get rid of Nginx. So because of that, we've got a few IP addresses that are reserved in all of our clusters,
yes.
which is sucking down a few dollars per month. And then our Kubernetes objects are not even using those IP addresses, so that we've got a little bit of cleanup that we can perform inside of our configurations to make sure that we are more concise with what we have configured in our environments. I would love to be able to knock that out before we close this epic.
Awesome. Okay, that makes sense.
And hopefully that's one of those quick wins. I would want to test this in pre to make sure that we don't accidentally lose the API from Nginx and such, so I don't cause an outage, but we could test that, obviously.
Awesome. Yeah.
Outside of that, yes, I think this epic is like the finish line is in sight.
Amazing. Great work. Exciting stuff. Awesome. Andrew, was there anything you wanted to demo? I mean, no pressure. I know you're busy on loads of other stuff. So.
Yeah, I don't have a lot that I can really add this week unless you're interested in knowing about Postgres saturation metrics, which I can give you lots of insight into now, but I don't know if that's the right audience. I'm really sorry about that. Hopefully, I'm aiming to have it all done by, but I am anyway. I'm hoping to have this all done by the end of the week. So because I just want to get it off my plate. It kind of came on unexpectedly, and I'd like to get it off as quickly as I can. And so hopefully next week, I've put on that daily stand-up thing that I'll have it done by the end of the week. So hopefully I can clear it off and be done.
Good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
And then next week I'll be able to focus on this again.
Okay, cool. Well, what I was going to say, when I might sort of check in on your status before I went in. So, what I've been trying to work on this afternoon, and it's certainly not finished yet, so I'll keep pulling it together, is to capture up the ideas that everyone had for tech debt and work out how we can rank these things. And what's really interesting, so this is kind of the combined view. So the numbers are going to weight differently, right? So I've just added them all up, but there are some things we might want to prioritize the web migration for now and look at some things later. But what I did want to highlight is all the observability stuff is ranking up really highly. So I think that's a really good sign, and I think we should make sure that we are working with you, Andrew, so that we can actually all get this stuff done. It's going to be super valuable for the web migration. But having more people will definitely help on that one.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I was chatting to Graham about this morning was that he pointed out that two kind of issues we have with the ideas on this spreadsheet. One is there's loads of overlap. And two is that some of these things are not at all like achievable in a month or probably even a couple of months. So what I might try and do is pull this data out and put it into an issue so we can see, like, here are like the top 4 most fun things, or here are the top themes, and see if I can present the information in various different ways. And then Graham was suggesting that maybe what we do is work out what problem or theme we want to work on. And then from that point say, okay, so if we want to solve like maintainability, what are the things we can do, and not limit ourselves to, hey, this specific task. And it might help us move through some of this stuff. So I will pull all that stuff together and share that out, but thank you for all the input so far. I think, well, actually, I'm interested in what other people's thoughts are. Like, was this is it helpful seeing all of our kind of like pain points in this way, or like other things that you'd like to add to this, like to this approach, I mean?
I enjoyed walking through it just to see what other people thought, as well as just kind of gauging or seeing a lot of the work that we all have an opinion about.
Yeah, I think it was very helpful.
Good, great. And I think from chatting to Graham this morning, we're kind of saying that it was interesting how actually a lot of this stuff circles around maybe 3 or 4 bigger problems, which is good to know. So we can work out how we actually fit those in the future months. Awesome. So yeah, I'll pull all that stuff out, and then we can actually take a look through it and work out, like, we still don't have issues for everything. I think that's totally fine. Like, I don't want to spend too much time doing admin. So I'll pull that stuff together and share an issue out for the next round of reviews. So is there anything else anyone wants to discuss or demo today?
Yeah, I just added this very much at the end, but I just did a very cheap API CPU request calculator in a spreadsheet to see how much we could fit on a node, and I can just show this very quick. Is this one? Yeah. And what I just did, looking on one of the API nodes, looking what kind of containers we have running there. So maybe I'm off here because on other nodes it's looking different, but I think it's more or less the same. Like, these are the not API related containers running on each of the nodes. And this is the node total allocatable node capacity we have. And if we then take that web service pod takes 4,600 requests, we come up with 3 per node, which we can fit in there. And it's very hard to fit more on them. We would need to reduce the CPU requests on the web service pod drastically, or find place somewhere else to fit one more node, one more pod on one node. So I think with just reducing requests, it will be hard to get more pods on a single node. Or we need to move things way around. Workhorse can be reduced because we are way below our requests most of the time, but there's not much to squeeze out. We are still, it's not really easy to fit 4 pods on a single node. So increasing node size maybe is the only way here. Or playing around with threads and workers.
This is good information.
Yeah, we can
Thanks
just
for doing
adjust the
this.
numbers here and see how it fits and look into what other nodes look like. It was a very quick look on one node only, but it looks hard to adjust the numbers.
1,000 requests worth of mining, Henry.
Come again?
1,000 requests worth of Bitcoin mining. So
Yeah,
we can fill with the other 1,000
we have something left over, yeah. So we could use it for something, but it's barely enough for one more Puma thread. So that's really sad.
I've got to run.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, I'm done with my.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Henry. Super. Does anyone else have anything they want to go through state? No? Okay. Well, thank you for the demos and discussions and great work on the continued tuning. Looking forward to us getting API service over the line. So nice work. All right. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Speak soon. Bye.